You're listening to the Happiest Lives podcast with Jill Lillard, episode number 68.
Welcome to the Happiest Lives podcast, where you'll learn to think better, feel better, and become the woman God says you already are. Here's your host, Jill Lillard.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Happiest Lives podcast. So a couple weeks ago, I introduced the concept of urges. Some urges are going to serve you. Maybe you have an urge to do something nice for someone and you just feel like, I have to do this because this would be so great. And other times you may have an urge to do something that may not serve the greater good. It may not serve you, others, or the Lord. And so some urges can lead us into sin. Now, urges in and of themselves are not sinful. There are scriptures that tell us that you can have a thought and urge to do something, but when you act upon the urge, that is when we give birth to sin, not having the urge, not having the temptation. And so if we answer some of those urges that do not honor God, ourselves, or others, this is going to cause suffering for us. And even if we don't answer those urges, it is going to cause suffering for us. So we have to choose what sort of suffering are we going to pick. Which suffering is going to produce a fruit in your life? Which one is going to benefit you? When we complete our course of suffering, just like Christ did, he completed his course of suffering and was made perfect, then we are following the path that he has laid out for us. I believe we've each been given a course of suffering, and it is our job to complete that. And our goal should be to win the prize. So last week, we discussed the power to choose, that you get to decide how you are going to respond to the suffering. You're going to decide how you're going to respond to the urge that is ahead of you. And we looked at 3 different ways that we often react or respond to our urges. Now, 2 of the ways focus on the flesh. We can fight with the urge. And so sometimes I call this resisting it, but I don't want it to be confused with resisting in terms of standing against the urge. So when we fight the urge using our willpower, then we are getting caught in a wrestling match with the urge and we're eventually going to wear out. Or we can just give into the urge. We can answer it. We can obey it. And so I like to think of these 2 options that exemplify the flesh as fighting with your child at the grocery store, at Walmart, at Target, wherever you shop. So think about a child sitting in the cart, throwing a tantrum at the store. I remember having this experience when my children were young, where maybe they didn't want to be at the store or they wanted something. They wanted something and the answer was no, you can't have that. And a tantrum was thrown. And so as parents, this is our opportunity to teach and discipline our kids. So our kids are presenting us with an opportunity to be disciplined, to learn what it means to say no to ourselves. And as a parent, we get the opportunity to help them know that they can have urges and desires and they aren't always going to be answered. But the reason that's hard for us sometimes to teach them is because we don't know how to do it for ourselves. We are experiencing an urge to stop the crying, to stop the fit. And so we may give in to that temptation to do whatever it takes to stop it immediately, rather than allowing ourselves to feel the discomfort of wanting something and not answering. So the same lesson we're trying to teach our kid, we have to be able to implement for ourselves. And so this is the beauty of parenting. Often what we are feeling, it helps us empathize with what our child is feeling. And if we know the right way to respond to that, that's going to produce a positive consequence in the long run, then we can model that for them. And we can keep our eyes on the prize. We can keep our eyes on the long-term goal rather than the immediate fix, the immediate gratification. So if this child wants something and they're screaming in the cart, your job as a parent is to allow your child to scream and throw a fit or whatever it is that they're going to do without answering it. So what we see sometimes, however, is either the parent gives in. I just want it to stop. I don't want people to keep looking at us. This is embarrassing. The intensity of the screaming is too much and I just need it to stop. And so we may give in and obey the urge. We may answer the urge. We may obey the child, give them what they want, or we may get so fixated on how the child is behaving and we're not going to answer it, but we get mad that they are behaving that way. And so we are trying to turn the child off. We're trying to stop them. And so we get fixated on quit throwing a fit. Now, if you have seen this at Walmart or Target or the grocery store, sometimes you see a parent matching the child's intensity. So the parent starts to throw a fit that the child is throwing a fit. And so we may do this with our children, which that is an urge we're feeling, but we may do this in other situations. We get in a wrestling match with the desire, with the urge. We act like it shouldn't be there and we're playing tug of war with it, or we're trying to overpower it by countering the intensity with our own intensity. And that is not going to work in the long game. We're going to get exhausted. Eventually the urge is going to win out. And so what we want to do is we want to allow the urge to be there without answering it. And so what this would look like with the child in the grocery cart is, okay, yep, I know you're upset. I know you want the candy bar, but we're not getting the candy bar. And it's okay for you to be upset, but it's not okay to throw a fit. Now, the child gets to throw the fit, but you calmly in your mind can know that there may be a consequence for this later. But you don't have to wrestle the child and force them to stop. You can ask them to stop. I need you to stop screaming. But you don't have to fight until they do stop. You don't have to try to overpower them. You can calmly look at them, tell them no, and you can continue to move forward with the shopping and do what it is that you need to do. And that is how they will learn that, hey, when I am throwing a fit, it doesn't get me what I want. And so the child, this may happen a few times, the child will eventually learn that throwing a fit gets them nowhere. And so the child will learn to fill their desire, maybe ask for something. But when the mother tells the child no, the child will learn to move forward with the no. Okay. And so you have to go through the process of allowing the urge to be there. It may get loud, it may be obnoxious, but if you push and persevere through that, you will get to the other side. This is a lot like sleep training. When my son was very overtired as a baby, I had to learn how to understand his sleep cues. And so the goal was not to let him cry himself to sleep. The goal was to understand the sleep cues so that he didn't get to the point where he was overtired, so I could get him to bed earlier. But he was so sleep deprived, he could not calm himself down and relax and get to sleep. And so we had this vicious cycle. He wasn't getting sleep. I wasn't getting sleep. So I turned and asked for help. I reached out to different supports, other professionals, other parents who had gone through this, and several people had directed me to the book, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. And so I read what I should do. And what I needed to do was to let him cry until he fell asleep. And so he could cry out. He wanted me to come in there, but I had to learn how not to answer the urge. And the urge to go in there was huge. My brain played all the tricks on me. My brain tried to convince me that something horrible was going to happen if I didn't go in there. My body was flooded and I just wanted the sound to stop. But as I focused on the prize ahead of me. The prize ahead of me was that he would learn how to soothe himself. He would learn how to calm down and fall asleep. And this was part of the process, part of the suffering that I had to go through. Now, I was already suffering. I was already suffering because I was sleep deprived, and I knew he was suffering because he was sleep deprived. So I had to allow both of us to suffer, to feel the desire, to feel the urge and not answer it, so that we could receive the gift of being able to sleep, which in the long game would reduce the suffering that we were experiencing. And so I held on to the truth of the book, what research had shown, and it told me that his crying may intensify. If it goes on for 45 minutes, the last thing I needed to do was to walk in there and intervene and give up, because I would only reinforce that urge that it would be answered if he endured long enough. So I had to outlast him. And that's what we need to do with our urges. We want to outlast our urges. And what the book told me was this might happen for a couple days, but then it would go extinct. And that is exactly what happened. Now, it told me several weeks later, it may rear its head again, but I needed to stick with the plan, and then it would go extinct again. And all of the things happened as the book told me. Okay. So it helped me to know what to expect from the urge, to commit to not answer the urge, because I had a greater good in mind. I wanted to play the long game, to not just get immediate relief from the urge, but to get to the other side of it. And so I didn't have to fight against the urge. I didn't have to fight against the fact that he was crying. I had to simply allow the urge to be there, feel the discomfort of the urge to go in there, and just patiently wait it out, my eyes on the prize. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is that God always provides a way out. When we are tempted, God provides a way out. 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so you can endure it. I want to break this passage down into the different parts. So number 1, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. It is normal to be tempted. Everybody is tempted. Nothing is wrong that you have urges, that you face temptation. So your temptations are not unique. They are not exceptional. Others have experienced the same struggles. And understanding this can provide comfort and a sense of solidarity with others. 1 Peter 5:8-10 tells us to be alert and sober-minded. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. Okay, there is so much within that passage. But the part I'm going to focus on is that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. Once again, no temptation has overtaken you except that which is common to mankind. Hebrews 12:11 tells us, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And the passage, the chapter before this, chapter 11, talks about all the heroes of the faith who went before us. It lists them name by name and the ways that they acted in faith. And so we will focus on that we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. These are the witnesses, the heroes of the faith who have gone before us. They are standing along the course of the race that we are running. Okay, we are running the race. We are persevering. We are keeping our eyes on the prize. And all the temptations and urges and obstacles that we face, these heroes of the faith have faced the same urges and struggles. the same circumstances and challenges, and they are standing on the sidelines and they are cheering us on. Isn't that a beautiful vision? Okay, so temptation is common. It's part of our plight here. And the second part of this is God is faithful. God is reliable and trustworthy. He is always there for us, particularly in times of temptation. Jesus was tempted in Hebrews 2:18 because he himself suffered when he was tempted. He is also able to help those who are being tempted. Jesus understands and he empathizes with our situation because he has experienced temptation himself. He is able to help us when we face temptation. The third part of this verse in 1 Corinthians 10:13 is that our temptation is limited. A particular urge, a particular temptation that you're feeling, it's not going to last forever. We read that he will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. So God controls the extent of our temptation. He allows the temptation to be there, but he will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. He knows our limits, and he ensures that the temptations we encounter are within our ability to resist. Now, he gives us tools, he gives us support, and he wants us to turn toward him and receive the support and tools and weapons that he is offering us. And when we do that, we can overcome these temptations. These temptations will not be unbearable. Now, they may feel unbearable at times. You may sense your own weakness, which that becomes the prompt to turn toward the Lord and confess the truth that he says you will not be tempted beyond what you can bear. And we can cry out in desperation, Lord, I need your help. Ephesians 6:10-11. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. This scripture speaks to the preparation and strength that God provides us to stand against temptation. When we put on the full armor of God, we are equipped to resist the devil's schemes. James 4:7, submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. This passage emphasizes our power to resist temptation through submission. When we submit to God, we're promised that the devil will flee from us. These scriptures collectively affirm that God controls the extent of our temptations. They are within our capacity to resist. We can stand against the urge. God provides us with the means and support to overcome them. We can stand firm and resist temptation through faith, reliance on his promises, and the strength that he supplies us. And the last part of this passage is that God will provide a way out. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so you can endure it. God promises an escape route from temptation. And so this could be a change in your circumstance as you wait upon him. He can give you a supernatural strength to stand against the temptation. He can clear the path to avoid sin. He's going to give you direction and wisdom when you turn to him. And then you get to choose whether you're going to obey those directions or not. And so how we can apply this is, number one, recognize that temptation is universal. Knowing that others face similar temptations can help you feel less isolated and more equipped to seek support and encouragement from other believers around you, and to seek support from the Lord. And as you run your race and persevere in the race, you can imagine these heroes of the faith cheering you on. The other application point is to trust in God's faithfulness. Rely on his unchanging nature and his promises. Remember, he's always present. He's always ready to assist you. understand your limits. Be aware that God knows your capacity and He has promised not to let you be overwhelmed by the temptation. This can help build confidence as you face challenges. It may feel like too much, like there's no way I can do this. But when you keep your eyes on the Lord and the prize before you, you can remind yourself with confidence, He will not give me more than I can bear in this situation. And then look for the way out. Actively seek the escape routes that God is providing for you. This requires vigilance, prayer, perseverance, determination. We are called to strenuously contend with the energy that Christ places in us. And He's going to give us practical actions that might help us avoid situations where we may experience temptation. And when those situations are right in front of us and we're experiencing that temptation, He is our strength. So here's some practical tips. Number 1, when you are tempted, turn toward the Lord and ask for help. Ask Him what you should do and then do it. Number 2, declare scripture. This is what Jesus did when He was tempted. When the enemy spoke lies to Him, He responded with words of truth. Number 3, shift your focus to what is ahead, what is on the other side, what's at the finish line, instead of focusing on the urges, the suffering now, the obstacles, the temptations. Focus on the prize ahead of you. Number 4, visualize others who've gone before you, cheering you on. Number 5, if there are situations, people, or activities that you know are going to bring temptation, don't put yourself in front of those things. Number 6, stay close to God. Maintain a strong relationship with the Lord through worship, prayer, and study of His Word. When we abide in Him, He will fortify us with the strength, the vision, the energy to run the race that He has given us to run. So in conclusion, 1 Corinthians 10:13 reassures us that we're not alone in our struggle with temptation. God is faithful. He limits the temptations we face and He provides a way out. We can rely on His strength and wisdom to endure and overcome any temptation. So that concludes our lesson for today. Next week, we're going to talk about breaking the shame cycle. Sometimes one of the things hindering us is the experience of feeling shame. And we can get caught up in a cycle of beating ourselves up. And when we do this, we just end up repeating the cycle of sin in our life. And so we're going to talk about that more next week. If you join Clarity and Courage, if you're a member of Clarity and Courage, you get a bonus lesson where I walk you through how to allow an urge without answering. I'm going to give you some specific common situations that Christian women face, and we are going to tap into the emotion that comes up when you have that urge and it feels so intense. And I'm going to show you specifically how you can experience that feeling without answering it so that you can persevere and move through it. Thank you guys for listening today. I always appreciate it. If you are enjoying the podcast, please leave a review. That helps us in the algorithm. It helps the podcast get noticed. And that is a wonderful way that you can thank me for providing this resource for you that doesn't cost you anything. This is my gift to you. And I pray that it is a blessing in your life. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Until then, have a beautiful week. If you enjoy